Why was I the baby chosen for adoption? Why am I still alive, and why are so many other people dead? I was born in Cambodia in 1974, but was separated from my parents by the bloody civil war. I had grown up believing that my real father had been wounded, and no longer able to look after me, carried me on his back to an orphanage. I made a miraculous escape and was adopted by a loving English couple, and found I had a new brother. I do tend to say I'm English, and they say, no, but where do you really come from? I say, oh, I was born in Cambodia, but quite, you know, I definitely feel English.
I remember taking Daniel off to a shrink in Harley Street to art, because we were quite worried about the effect on Daniel, because we didn't know you, so we weren't worried about you. We thought, oh, we're giving you a good home, that's okay. But we were worried about Daniel, and we went to this psychiatrist, and he said, oh, I wouldn't worry about Daniel, he looks like a little bruiser, he'll survive anything. He said, but I would worry about this little girl. He said, the confusion of different mothers and different languages, he said, I wouldn't be surprised if she never speaks. And she will be screwed up, he said, she will definitely be a problem, and why take on a problem?
I have always felt English, but had no idea what the Cambodian blood in my veins meant. I had been told about my amazing rescue for as long as I can remember. Could it be all a myth? I had to go back to find out what really happened and see if I could find my parents and discover the country where I would have grown up. My story had been handed down to me. I had been told that everyone who had helped save me was a hero, except I knew it had to be more complicated than that. I had 3 pieces of evidence with clues about my early life: a birth certificate, contract for adoption, and a photo of me as a baby. Somewhere in that flat land somewhere are my family. I thought I was going to be arrested because they said, "Whose is this?" Like this, you know. And I said, you're born in Cambodia, Kandal." My Cambodian looks but British passport had caused great confusion. They couldn't decide whether I was a tourist or coming home. The next day, I met Kim Seng, my interpreter. I needed advice on how to start my search. I suppose I ought to pay one, well, depends if I'm Cambodian or they see me as a foreigner. My documents were the only evidence of my past. I had always been told that my father was a government soldier who had saved me after my mother was killed by a rocket attack. But with no actual proof, I realized anything was possible. We decided that a national TV advert was a useful way to start. It feels very strange to see about 6 inches of me around. It's a baby. See, amazing, yeah? It would make more sense if it was a picture of my parents, but unfortunately I don't have a picture of my parents, so this is the only way to do it. While waiting for the advert to go out, I headed off to Takamau, where my birth certificate had been issued.
Li-Da. Vậy nó năng này hay ôm một ta và President
was child was born the same year as you. But that's lab now. No, he didn't.
Người ta mình đang xem ta xong hỏi ta mình càng tới cái đập mơn.
Đập mơn thôi gì mà đập lá.
Đập mơn đập lá đúng không?
Đập mơn đập lá.
So is it possible that I was one of these babies? My heart sank in a way. Is that a truth I want to end up with on my search, you know? I was born just as the Civil War was reaching a climactic end. Government forces loyal to the king and supported by the Americans were losing to the communist guerrillas that called themselves the Khmer Rouge. Takamau had seen some of the worst violence. In April 1975, the Americans withdrew their troops. A few days later, the Khmer Rouge marched triumphantly into the capital to win the war. According to my fairy tale, it was at this very moment that I was flown out of Cambodia with the last American helicopter. I went to the documentation center of Cambodia. It had been set up to collect information about the Khmer Rouge regime and to provide the public with a better understanding of what had happened. I hoped its family tracing service might aid my search. Is it true that a lot of people have the same names?
Oh yes, in Cambodia.
So even if it does come up here, this name doesn't...
It's not necessarily him, but you have to check the background as well.
I'm still quite far away from the truth.
S-O-M.
The difficulty for me and all Cambodians searching for their relatives is that the Khmer Rouge had destroyed almost everything from the past. Yuk Chang runs the centre, and unlike me, had first-hand experience of the Khmer Rouge years.
I was spotted by the Khmer Rouge, and then they hit me. They arrest me and tie me up and hit me with the axe. And what they did, they tortured me in front of my mother. And then they put me in jail for several weeks, and then they released. But now, 23 years later, I look back. I was very angry before I start this project that how come the Khmer Rouge torture me in front of my own mother? And why they did not allow her to cry? Because crying was a crime.
She wasn't allowed to cry either.
If she cried, they would have killed her.
The Khmer Rouge emptied the entire urban population into the countryside under the pretext that the Americans would start bombing again. In reality, their leader Pol Pot wanted to establish a basic rural society. Starting from what they called Year Zero, they banned love, colour, laughter, and even killed people for wearing glasses. I found it really hard to believe that almost 30 years later, still no one had been held accountable for one of the worst atrocities of the 20th century. Saying that they don't want to deal with their past, they don't want to know the truth, they just want to live for the present and because they fear for the future.
I think it's a matter of people so scared, so frightening, and too painful to recall, but it's with you, inside of you. So you better let it free, let it go. So it's a process. I think that the most important for a lot of victims is knowing what happened. That means justice to them. Facing the past so that you can move on with your future. Face it.
Many more adverts continued after mine. It suddenly dawned on me that while in England my story was unique, it was commonplace in Cambodia. And so the word was out. While waiting for a response, my other interpreter, Sunny, took me sightseeing.
Tell her before. Tell her thing like that.
Oh, really? It's a family outing?
Yeah.
Bye. 3 days after the advert was broadcast, I got my first response. Okay, so basically, a man, is it a man, Sonny? A man phoned up and said he thinks he's one of my relatives. Could he speak to me? But Sonny, being the good man he is, said, you know, I'll call her first. So what happens now? I don't know, maybe if he could tell you what type of, what part of relative he is, if that makes sense. Just find out a bit more and then say, I'd love to meet him, but we just need to, you know. It still feels so unreal, this whole thing. I mean, this could be my father, my brother or something. It could be someone just pretending as well. So, pretending because they see I'm a British passport, maybe, or just because they, you know, the other scenario is that they could have just lost, you know, they could have lost a family member and think, oh my God, she's here, you know.
Jamming. And they want to meet you now. I think around 4.
Later that day, the man phoned Sonny again, saying that he was in fact bringing my parents to meet me. I couldn't believe how fast it was all going. Did this really mean that my search was soon to be over, and so quickly? I've got 5 minutes and counting before I meet my parents. It's been 27 years that I've sort of dreamed of this moment, and now I'm petrified. I can say, yeah, I want to go and find my parents, but, you know, coming to the crunch, you move over. The search is one thing, finding them is a totally different thing.